course, and I'm glad to announce to you that we are right in the middle of the course. I haven't done 18 classes. I think this is the 6th week now out of the 12 weeks that we are meant to spend on this course. So you've come a long way, and I congratulate you for hanging around, and I do hope that so far you've learnt a lot. All right, I think I would just wait for more people to join. Just give you guys a few minutes. But while doing that, I will do a rundown of what today's class is going to entail. So, like you can see on your screen, is a class where we build a web page. So, just to help you concretize what has been taught since the beginning of the week. So you started with HTML, CSS, and then you looked at React. Yes, the React class may seem a lot, but it's good that you get all of that knowledge. But as you begin to practice and as you begin to build web pages, all of those things that you learned in that class will come alive, and you see them and see their importance. So today's class will be very hands-on, like I mentioned, and we have very minute lecture like we would typically have. The bulk of the class is going to be practical. So as you join in the class, ensure that your VS Code is ready. Ensure that your terminals are opened because we'll be writing code, and I want you guys to also follow along. All right, so I'm going to take a look at the chat section to see that I can get you guys questions as we start the class. All right, so we're good. Do kindly let me know that you can hear me and the audio is good as well. From my end, yeah, the audio is great, but do let me know as well. All right, good. So again, get your terminals ready, and I do hope that now you can use Git, because we'll be pulling some code from Git as well. So let me quickly share you the link that will be important to this class. So there are two links that you need to pen down. So the very first one, which is pointing to DSA sample portfolio, is actually a fully built portfolio, so which is what we are trying to replicate for this class. Again, because of the nature of the class and the shortness of the time that we have, there will be a lot of copy-pasted code. And the reason for that is so that we can save time. I will explain the codes that have been pasted as I'm copying them. I mean, it's going to take a bit of effort and a bit of time to actually type all the codes. Right now, the code should be, I mean, very close to 5,000 lines of code, maybe a little bit below that. I mean, just imagine having to type all of that out in 2 hours. That's going to be a lot. I mean, conservatively, we should be around 3,000 lines of code. So that's a lot to type out in a single class. So again, there will be copy-pasted code, but all of the code will be explained, and you will see them as they affect the code base and what is seen on the screen. I mean, you'll see the web page as the codes are being typed out and what changes are being made on the page. All right, so take note of this two. The second one you should be familiar with. In one of our classes, we wrote a basic API that returned random quotes. I think one of the endpoints returned random quotes One, you could use it to generate your own code. You could use it to write your own code and all of that. So we'll be using that endpoint in this class. So the reason why we'll be using that endpoint, okay, let's break it down like this. So the class is going to go like this. The end goal for us is to have a portfolio website. That is the end goal for us. And how to achieve that. So these are the learning objectives for tonight. Kindly take note of that. Design and build a personal portfolio page, and learn and use semantic HTML and responsive CSS, right? And for an assignment, you can go ahead to try and publish the code that you've written. You can either use GitHub pages if you're publishing HTML and CSS, or you can sign up on Netlify. I mean, there are guides online that shows you how to do that if you want to host your React app. I mean, there are several other ways to host your React app, but I feel Netlify is sort of easy, and an alternative to that would be Vercel. But you guys can research on all of this. Okay, let me be sure that I've not lost anyone so far. Okay, all good so far. All good so far. All right, so what we'll be looking at, or the approach we'll be taking for the class is this. And the reason for this approach is that I know not every one of you are on the same level of knowledge. Some are just starting out learning HTML and CSS. Some may have already started writing React app, but we are not going to leave anyone behind. So I have split this class into like 4 levels. I have the level 1, where we are just going to write HTML and CSS. And then level 2, we convert that HTML, CSS that we've written into a React app, and we break them down into component and law. And then level 3, we will fetch data from some APIs. And that's why I said the other API that we wrote in one of our classes is going to be handy, because in one of the levels we are going to be using it. And then in level 4, we'll try and use that said API endpoint that I mentioned earlier. All right, so those are the 4 levels that we'll go through in this class, and I hope that you all follow along. All right, so I'll just jump right into my browser and show you the end product of the web page that we are going to be building during the class. And I'm really hoping that we'll gain a lot of speed and actually have that end product handy indeed. All right, okay. So I'm sharing my screen, my browser. You should see it in any moment from now. And just so that you can see better, I'm going to close my video so that my screen takes the entire screen that you're watching from. All right, so this is what the end product looks like. This is a portfolio page. This is not mine. This is something I put together for this class. So you see that there is this section which is called an hero section, and you can see my moniker boldly shown there, and you see software engineer, front-end, app developer. I mean, all of this content are just content for the sake of this class, nothing really pointing to my expertise as such. So you see this section for my expertise, and we have all of this. And then you see this section that contains projects. So these are sample projects, and you see this section that is showing some cards. This is showing repos from my own GitHub account. So I have 136 public repository, and there are other private repositories that I have. So this is pulling data from GitHub using one of GitHub's API endpoints. You'll get to see that when we get to, I think, level 4 of implementing a portfolio. And this joke section also is put from an API. You see all of those API as we implement them. This also, okay, this particular one is from the API that we wrote in one of our classes, the quotes API. So this is one of the quotes from that API. And let me quickly show you where that is from. So this is the endpoint. Let me zoom into this. I believe you have seen this before in the class where we actually dealt with API endpoint. I believe all of this was shown to you. So if you hit this endpoint, you get a random quote, right? And that is what we are calling in the front end, in the portfolio that I just showed you. So what the response is what you see here. I mean, you see all of that. So it's taking a bit of time. Okay, now it has returned it. You see now, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. That's what the endpoint returns, and that's what you see here on the page. So we get to see all of this, right, during the class. All right. So I believe you all have your IDs open now. I have mine open. So mine is open here. So I'm just going to walk us through step by step. And again, like I mentioned, you can pull the entire code base for this class. It's already on GitHub. I showed you the link earlier. If you didn't see the link, maybe after the class you can go back to it. Or, okay, what I can do for you guys is, let me show you again. Okay. So sample portfolio. Okay, so if you're to pull, just visit this link right here. Let me increase the font size so you guys can see it better, and bring it to the middle of the page. So this is the link to the sample portfolio, which is what is most important for this class. So do well to take a look at this again. So while at that, I would also like to explain how the repo is. Short form of repository is repo. So if I again and again refer to it as repo, just know that I'm referring to this GitHub repository. So how I have the repository structured is that by what I explained earlier, that there are levels to which this class is split. We have level 1 to 4, and each level with well, let's call it an increasing level of complexity. I mean, it's really not complex, but the technicality increases as you proceed down the level. So what I have here, I'm switching over to my browser. What I have done so far is I have 5 branches on the repository. You have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And each of these branches contains the code for the different levels. So if you go to level 1, you see here that you have just HTML files, right? You have just HTML files. And if you go to level 2 is where we introduce React. You see here that we have more files to deal with, right? And by the time you get to level 3 and 4, the different branches contains different files, different codes, just to express that different levels of increasing technicality. So when you go to the repo and you pull it to your computer, I do believe that during your Git class, you were taught how to pull a repo or how to clone a repo. Excuse me. So in cloning a repo, what you do is you copy the URL and then you go to your terminal, then you do git clone this repo and it's going to pull the code base down to your computer. So once that has happened, you can switch between branches. So I'm going to demonstrate that for you all to see. Again, I'll be taking a look at the chat section just so that I don't lose all of us. So if the screen is too small, just do let me know. I'll try and increase it. So for this one, I think it's a bit small. I'll increase it. So let's try and pull the code base, although I already have it on my computer, but just for the sake of those who would be following or who might be wondering how to clone a repository. So cloning a repository is creating a copy of that repository, but now you are creating a copy for yourself. So I'm going to go to where my source codes are for DSA. Mine is in documents /developer/DSA. Yours might be different. For some of you, I know that you save your project on your desktop. For me, it's in my document folder, and I created a subfolder called developer, and inside developer I have DSA containing all code base related to DSA. So let me list what I have so far. So I have the basic API project. I have the data structure algorithms. I believe you guys will remember the tool that I showed you one time where you could interact with different data structures and see different algorithms and their running time. So I have that project inside this folder as well, and I have a remix app, which is a project I was playing around with, and then I have the sample portfolio. So just to clone, what we'll do is do git. All right, let me increase this font so that you guys can see it better. I think it's big enough. All right, so you do git clone. Let me clear it first so all goes up. Okay, you do git clone. Remember I copied a link from GitHub earlier, which is this. So you paste that here. And one thing you can do with this is you can rename the project while you're cloning it. So I'm just going to rename it as portfolio test. And you see it cloning. You see here it says cloning into portfolio test. Essentially, it's saying pulling this code base into a folder called portfolio test, and it has pulled all the files needed. So now let's change directory into this folder that I just pulled the code base into, which is portfolio test. Now we are in the folder. I'm going to list all the files and folders inside these folders. So here you see that we have index.html, project 1, and so on and so forth. Now the reason why you see that is by default on this project, I have the level 1 in the main branch, right? I have the level 1 in the main branch. If we do git branch, which should list all the branches that we have, you see it pointing to main. And by the way, the other branches that we have also are part of what has been pulled down. If you need to change to that branch, I mean, it's like changing directory or clicking into another folder, right? All you just need to do is git, you check out the branch that you want to go into. So let's say we want to go to level 2. We do level 2, git checkout level 2. So now it's saying branch level 2 set up to track origin level 2. That's not what we are looking for. This is what we are interested in, that it has switched to a new branch level 2. Now let's check what's in that folder. You see that the content of the folder has changed, and the reason why is because we changed the branch. So you can do that for all the other branches that we have. Like I mentioned, we have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Just for the sake of practice, let's try level 3, and then we list what's in level 3. Although you won't see difference because the file structure is about the same. The difference actually lies in the app folder. If we explore further the app folder, you will see the difference that we are talking about. All right. Okay, so that's that for that. But where we should start from today is this. So I'm going to change directory back to DSA. So now I'm in DSA, PWD shows me where I am. So now I'm in DSA. So I'm going to clear all of this up so that we have enough space to work with. So now this is what I want us to do for those that are trying to follow. For those that are trying to follow, okay, let me take a look at the chat section if there are anything that we need to pay attention to. Okay, someone is saying the screen is too small. Well, if you're watching on phone, I think the experience will be that the screen is too small. But if you're watching on your laptop, I think it should be good enough. And another thing you can do is you can increase the quality of the stream. Just put it at 1080p, and I think you should see it clearly. But regardless, I will try and increase my fonts going forward. Okay, let me just see what you guys are doing. Again, the folder where you are doing this really doesn't matter. For me, I did it in developer folder because that's the structure I have set on my own computer. For you, it could be that you want to put your project inside inside your download folder, inside your desktop. I mean, all of that is up to you, right? So it really doesn't matter where the code lives. Okay. All right. Okay, I think we're good. So while we're still following, so what we will do is we create a folder. Right now we have all of this. This is the one I pulled recently. Okay, let me increase the font for those who might not see the font size that I currently have. Okay, clear this. So this is the folder that I just pulled. This is the one I had originally where I was working from on my computer, right? So what we want to do now is actually create a blank folder, and then we gradually build up the portfolio until we get to to the level 4. And again, looking at the time, I'm hoping that we really can get as fast to that point as possible. So we make a new directory. I will call it sample or live demo portfolio. Okay, we've made that directory now. If we list our directory, we see that we have that already created for us, live demo portfolio. So we change directory into that, cd live demo portfolio, which is good. All right, so I will switch over to my code editor. For today, I'm using Sublime Text. I know where we said you guys should install VS Code, so it's about the same thing. Really, the IDE shouldn't matter, and it shouldn't affect how you follow the class as well. The reason why I'm using Sublime is because it's a lot lighter than VS Code, and I don't want the class to drag or my system that I'm using to freeze up while having all of this running on my computer at the same time. So hence my choice of Sublime Text for tonight. Okay, so what I will do now is I will open this project. I will open the folder that I just created. You can go to File, Open. Same should apply for your choice of IDE, VS Code. It should apply. You can open a folder. So this is the folder we created. It has no items in it right now, so we open that. All right, it has opened that now. Let me make this big. All right, so we have this project, and the first thing we are going to do is create an HTML file. So we can save this particular one that we have here as an HTML file. So let me save it into this folder that we created. All right, let me rename that to index.html. I wouldn't know if it was mentioned to you guys, but index.html in a typical static file or static website is like the entry point. So you can consider it to be like the home page, or just think of it as the entry point to your code base or to your website. So now that we have created that, I would like to explain some of the things that we'll use for this level. I mentioned that we'll be doing HTML and CSS at the level 1. And in your class, it was also mentioned that there are frameworks that you can use when it comes to CSS. Instead of having to write your own CSS from scratch, fine, as a beginner, it will help you a lot to learn how to write from scratch, but it will boost your speed if you can rely on some frameworks. So for this class, we'll be using Tailwind, and the choice of Tailwind, aside the fact that it's almost like the industry standard right now, is that for learning, it's quite close to what you will get when you're writing vanilla CSS. And when I say vanilla CSS, I'm talking about writing plain old CSS, right? It's quite close to it. The things that you typically write in CSS is almost what you get in Tailwind, even though all of that is written inside an HTML file as well. In a typical CSS, traditional CSS HTML website, you would have a file that contains your CSS file, that contains your CSS styles, and then import that file into your HTML. Or you can also have a block inside your HTML code that will contain the CSS styling. But for now, we have the CSS inside the HTML using Tailwind. So to do that, what we'll do is now we have our HTML. What we'll do is we need to import a file for Tailwind, and I will show you all of that. Let's switch back to our terminal. We don't need this for now, so I'm going to take that away. Okay, let's do a quick Google search for how to import Tailwind into an HTML file. So what we are looking for is the CDN, and CDN stands for Content Delivery Network. CDN for Tailwind CSS. And the reason for CDNs is that it allows you in, let's say, a production environment to not have to host the CSS library on your server. So you can have the file hosted on a CDN, which most of the time is provided by those supporting the framework or whatever library it is that you're working with. And you can use that in your project. So what that does is that you won't have to host Tailwind in your project directly. So you see a sample here now. You can use this. I mean, let's actually copy this code out and see how it works. So we paste this. I think this might be too big for our class, so I'm going to reduce it. So we paste this and save. All right. So if we launch this, I need a live server. If we launch this on our website, you see that it shows hello world, and the hello world is coming from here. Let me change that so that you can see it updated. All right, hello world DSA. Now let's inspect and see where all the style is coming from. You see, if you open your inspect tool, you see that there is a text 3XL. Going back to the code, you see a text 3XL. And then looking at and let me increase this, hopefully it increases. Okay. You see text 3XL, font, bold, underline, and so on and so forth. And then when you come over to here, you see all the definition for what text 3XL is. It says the font size is, there's a variable called text 3XL, and the value is 1.875 rem, which is like a size saying like the font should be of this size, and other styling definition for what 3XL is. So what I'm trying to point out here is that we actually have pulled data from the CDN. That's why you see that the style has been applied to it, right? The style has been applied to it. All right. So from here on now, whatever we do, we actually adopt the styling from Tailwind CSS. So that's how you actually import Tailwind CSS. I mean, there are other ways that you can also do it. If you are to be doing React, you might install it with npm. But for now, since we are just doing plain HTML, using this CDN is sufficient for what we need. All right, so we jump right into actually building up the web page. So we have where to start with. Let me close this. We have where to start with, which is hello world DSA, and then we continue to add content to it until we get to the level 1 that I did mention earlier. Okay. I see someone saying sign over React? Well, for where the industry really is right now, one thing is you can't run away from JavaScript. And one thing is when you are building interactive web pages, React is like the go-to really. It's quite popular. There's a lot of support for it. I know there is Vue, and Vue has its own community and people rooting for it. I mean, people enjoy writing Vue. There are some of the things that you have a headache over while working with React, like the life cycle of React. Sometimes can be confusing. I mean, right now it's a lot easier to understand it, unlike when React was probably in React 10 or React 7 and the likes. But I don't understand why people might not really enjoy React as such. It has a bit of complexity around it, but once you understand it and you understand why such a thing, such a library as React is needed, or why we need to build reactive UIs, you will better appreciate it. And for different reasons also, the fact that you can have React be cross-platform. I mean, you can build mobile apps with React, I mean, React Native, but the same idea of state management and all of those things that you typically get in React for web, you can actually do same with React Native. And funny enough is you can actually build web apps with React Native as well. So such cross-platform and code reusability that you get with React. I mean, if you have such a company where you are building for web and you are building for mobile, imagine the speed that you can get being able to reuse some of your code on both platform, on web and on mobile, and all of those, right? So those are some of the benefits that comes with React. Although you can do same with, say, Flutter, but Flutter is really focused on mobile development. Yes, people try to use it for web, but I don't think the experience is as smooth as you would get with something like React. I mean, and so on and so forth, actually. Anyway, so let's get back to what we were talking about. So now we want to build out a simple HTML page. So for you, you can create a branch on your code base, or maybe just follow through all those branching. You can look at that with the sample code that that I shared a link to earlier. Okay, this is what we want to try and target for this level. This, right? Once we're able to do this for this level, I think I'll be happy. And also, like I mentioned, there will be a lot of copying, pasting, because really it's a lot of code. But I will explain the different part or show you the different part and gradually build it up for you. So I think where we should start with is let's build the first part, which is like the navigation, and then you see the code for that. All right. So navigation part. So we have this currently where we pulled in our tailwind from the CDN provided. The first thing that we want to do is we want to build the navigation bar, right? Again, I want to reduce the fonts so that I can easily also follow along with what I'm doing, because it's really quite big on my system. I know you guys are struggling to see it, but bear with me for now. Okay, so the navigation part is what we want to start with, right? So I did mention that we will learn something about semantic HTML as well. And the whole idea of semantic HTML is that you are using HTML tags that really depict what the section of the page is for. So let's say you are building a navigation. There is such a tag as nav, which you typically use for a navigation. And the reason for using semantic HTML, beyond the fact that it's easier for you to read, there are also people with different challenges. Some don't see properly and they use screen readers. And when you're using semantic HTML, it helps such screen readers to guide users who may be challenged with eyesight, for instance, right? And many other accessibility plus that using semantic HTML brings. So for our nav, we are going to use for our nav bar, we're going to use nav. And okay, so a lot of code to write out here. So I'm just going to do a copy paste, and also bearing in mind that we are actually 1 hour 20 minutes away from the end of the class. Okay, but what I will do is explain what I'm pasting over. So, I was saying that what CSS frameworks allows us to do is not to reinvent the wheel, so that you are not writing over and over again. Imagine you worked on a previous project, you wrote everything that is needed for navbar, and then again in a new project you are rethinking all of that. Yes, fine, you can reuse your code and all of that, but it gets to a point where it becomes too much of work, repeating yourself over and over again. So that's where frameworks comes in. And also when it comes to standardized approach, frameworks allows for that as well. Like imagine now, how do you handle something like a container? A container is like, think of it as a box. I remember in one of your class where your facilitator was talking about a box model and all of that. So for a container, think of it as a box containing other things. So that's like having like a standardized approach to actually writing CSS. For someone else coming to this code, they readily understand that, okay, when I say a container, it is a container containing other elements, and a container can span the full width of a browser page, right? So having just this code that we have written, let's move over to the page, and you see already that it has changed how the page looks just with this, right? So what this has done is, it says have a flex. A flex is also a way to lay out elements on the page. So have a flex, have a justification between elements within the flex. So for this block of code here, we have this level, and we have in this level two other elements. We have this element, three other elements actually. We have the button, we have the div, we have this a tag. So those are three elements. So essentially what this part is saying is justify and have the items centered, which is essentially what has happened here, right? Oh, okay. Yeah, so the third element is actually hidden for widescreen. You get to see it when you are in mobile, and let me quickly show you that. So if you collapse it down to mobile, the button should show around there. That is what is essentially saying. But anyway, let's continue building. And like we advised, some of these things you can't even cover it in 3 months. There are courses that deals with HTML and CSS, and they take more than 3 months to even get you to a reasonable point. But we are trying to compress everything for you as well, so that you can touch on every part that is needed to actually make you like a junior developer, right? But 3 months again won't allow us to go in depth. I mean, we can go and start explaining why and at what point Tailwind came about and why people love Tailwind for what it is, or start explaining how to implement a responsive UI and why you need to implement responsive UI and all of that. We can explain all of those, but it's going to take our time. I mean, just imagine how much time we spent already trying to create a project and trying to do a nav bar alone. All right, so we jump into the next part. We have done our nav bar now. So the nav bar contains about, expertise, project, contact, and they are linked to these hash links. So the hash links is essentially saying on this page, go to this section of the page named about. You still see all of those sections. So the next section that we want to go up to now is the hero section. And as I was saying, sorry, that's not the right one. The hero section is what I want to copy over now. All right. So we have this hero section. Let me just save it so that you see what we have. So the hero section is this portion here. And we'll clean up some of the code. You can see that this nav is repeating itself. We actually don't need that part. Or maybe what I should do is remove the original nav that we have and stick with this part, because this one looks a little bit sleeker, right? Okay, so let's take out the other nav that we had earlier. But mind you, we are still sticking to the semantic UI, semantic HTML that I mentioned earlier. This is a navigation, and we are starting that with a nav. All of this again is important for accessibility reasons. When we say accessibility, we are talking about making the web accessible to many more people, right? So those that might be challenged with seeing, those that may not hear, because there are times that you have audio on your website or have video on your website, they get helped when you actually follow semantic HTML. All right, so now that we have our hero, I'll just try explain. So let's take the nav out. Okay, let's start with this portion. From the comments, we see that we have a background. It's a geometric background. Let me remove that or comment it out so that you see what difference it makes. All right. You see that geometry that was behind this is now gone. So this is that part that handles the geometry behind the hero, which is this square and all of this. If you look closely, look at this portion here. It's saying you should give it a gradient. So there's a gradient going from this color to that color. This is what you typically write in a traditional CSS. And again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people gravitate towards Tailwind CSS because it feels like writing regular CSS, but also it comes with the perks that a typical CSS framework would have, right? So you see within that this outer box, there's an inner box that goes from orange 400 to yellow 300. And all of these classes, these are called classes. All of these classes are actually documented on Tailwind CSS website. So you can also go there to learn. But if you say you don't want to use Tailwind, there are other frameworks that you can use. But for the sake of this course, I think we will stick mostly with Tailwind CSS. And the fact that is more or less like the industry standard right now. We're just going to stick with that. So looking at this, it's quite self-explanatory. It's saying there's a width of 64. The box is height 64. It has a background gradient to TR from orange 400 to yellow. I mean, it's quite self-explanatory, and it's saying you should give it an opacity of 80, give it a rounded edge of 2XL. 2XL represents a value. Remember when we started with Hello World DSA, we added text 3XL, which was 1.857 rem, I think. So this 2XL also stands for a value. And then we have a rotate 12. So it says rotate it by 12 degree, which is what we have here. If we reduce this, and you see that reflected, you see that the box rotation has reduced. Let's take it back to 12. And it's back to where it was originally. So that's for the box behind it. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can actually learn in CSS, like element placement. So when it comes to element placement, by the way, this class is not for CSS really. It's just to showcase some of the things that you can do with HTML and CSS. But I wouldn't mind explaining some of these things for us to gain a better understanding. All right. Okay, I think this is what I would do. We don't need this section so much, so I can easily zoom in better. So when it comes to element placement, there are different element placement that you can have. You can either have it as absolute. So when you say something is absolute, it's standing by itself. Or you can say it is relative to something else, right? Or you can have it static, which means it's stationary always. So those are the different type of placements you have in CSS. Okay, again, this is not a CSS class, but as often as I can, I'll try and explain what is going on. All right, so you see a featured in section. And the featured in section is saying, give me an element that is 24 wide and 6 high, and give it a background of 700 and make it rounded. And that is exactly what you get here. Originally, what I intend to have here is a list of companies that this developer has worked with. But you can also update that on your own end once you have the code pulled down. So if you're just joining and you're wondering why are we moving so fast and why are we not taking time to allow people copy these codes and write them, I already shared earlier a repo where you can see all the codes to what we are doing. I'm actually copying from the repo itself. So as you're seeing it here, it's already existing in the repository itself. Okay, so don't be too concerned that you're missing out. All right, so we'll go to the next section now. And from here on, I'll be very fast. Faster than what we've been doing since. So I want to show you the expertise section. And I think probably we'll just stop this level 1 here since you already have the code base anyway. But just to show you your way around the code base is why I'm doing this. So copying that block of code gave us this. And to explain it, you have a section named expertise. Remember when I said our navigation is using a hash link. So what that means is that when I click on expertise, it actually takes me to the expertise section, because here in this expertise, the link is saying hash expertise, and this section has an ID expertise, which allows that routing, that single page routing to happen. If I change this to something else, we won't be able to access expertise section from here. You see, clicking on it over and over again does nothing. So that's how you achieve that single page hash routing. All right, I mean, that's that for a little bit of demonstration. So again, really, I know some of you will go ahead to become freelancers, building for companies and the likes. And then the question will come up where you're asking yourself, what should I use? Should I reach out for a React library to build a website? All of those decisions will boil down to what you're actually building, right? And if the page you are building or the website you are building will have content that will be changing very often, then you have to start thinking about how to manage those content. Or if the page you are building will require some interactivity, right? Then you have to start thinking about how to handle that. And when I say interactivity, let's say that you want your user to be able to calculate something on your page. Say you are building a loan app and you want to show your users how to calculate the interest that will be generated on the loan and the over the loan payment period and all of that. That's some level of interactivity, right? That is beyond just HTML and CSS, right? At that point, you need to bring in a scripting language, which would be JavaScript in the case of web, or while you're writing it out, you can actually write it out in TypeScript, which will then be compiled down to JavaScript. So when it comes to interactivity, you have to think about that. When it comes to content, you have to think about how to manage it. And I know some of you might hate on WordPress for whatever reason, but those are solutions that are targeted for specific use cases. So the idea for WordPress originally was to manage content, like so that you can build a website that has dynamic content or content that are changing frequently. So I mean, think about a news website where you're uploading probably 10 news 20 news articles on a daily basis, and you want to build those that kind of website with HTML and CSS. That means every day you have to be writing new HTML pages for every news article that you want to publish. But if you have a CMS like a WordPress, right, you can easily manage all of that. It will give you an admin interface where you get to manage all of those. Okay. So I'll pause here a bit and take a moment to look at what is going on in the chat section. And by the time we come back, I think we'll go straight into taking our attendance. But when we come back, we jump into the second level, and I will start explaining some of the things that we get as benefits when we jump into using a library like React. We will talk about componentization and I mean, doing something interactive, like you want to list your project and the project is being pulled from an API and all of that. But let's take a look at what you guys are talking about for now. Yeah, someone said the vanilla CSS. So when we say vanilla CSS or vanilla JavaScript, we are just talking about a plain, like something that is plain. I mean, think about cake. When you buy a vanilla cake, it's just plain cake, right? Then you can have strawberry cake, you can have velvet cake, you can have chocolate cake. But plain cake is vanilla cake. Same thing applies to when talking about JavaScript. And I mean, in terms of programming or software development, when you hear vanilla, we are just referring to plain. Okay. All right. I'm still looking around for questions. Okay. Oh, someone mentioned that there is Vue native. Oh, that's great. right, still looking for your questions. I mean, you don't have to download Sublime Text. For me, the reason why I'm using Sublime Text is to reduce the load on my system. Or maybe I should just switch over to it because Sublime Text has been giving me a little bit of headache with saving files and all of that. I have an extension set up on Sublime Text that is erroring out, right? So just not to have to deal with that. And I have so much more extension like that prettifies the code. You'll notice that while I was writing the code, some of the codes were scattered because I was pasting it over from somewhere else, right? But on my VS Code, I already have all of those set up in such a way that once I click save, it prettifies the code for me. So that's the reason why I'm using Sublime. But I'm going to switch over to VS Code by the time we come back after taking our attendance. All right, I'm still looking at the questions. Someone said they are not seeing anything. I wonder what they are talking about. I think I pretty much zoomed out my screen for everyone to see. All right, so that's that about that. We'll come back after we have taken our attendance and we continue with level 2. All right, welcome back, guys. So while we were away taking our attendance, I did go through some of the questions, and I think I find some of the questions quite interesting. Okay, so someone was asking which is better between Bootstrap and Tailwind. So, like someone responded that Bootstrap is old and all. Yeah, it might be old. I mean, it has a bit of history, but there are newer versions of Bootstrap that are actually still very nice for building website or building a web app. Well, like you rightly also answered, Tailwind is modern, and it has some more modern tooling that actually makes working with it a lot easier, right? So imagine if you are building a React app, there are some things that you actually don't really have to worry about, like writing CSS. There's CSS in JS. I mean, there's just a plethora of way of writing CSS when using React, which Tailwind sort of helps take away the headache, right? Like you don't have to bother too much about how to write your CSS because the CSS is contained within the HTML anyway. And it also allows for some easy manipulation of the UI. Say you want to you want your styling to change based on some interaction that is happening within the app. It's sort of easier when you're doing it with Tailwind. And to speak to the question of Bootstrap makes all websites look alike, yeah, I mean, it could be restrictive in that sense, but there's also a way to theme your Bootstrap, right? That you wouldn't even know that the website was built with Bootstrap, okay? I mean, at the end of the day, remember the class where I was talking about making trade-offs in software development? I mean, there are choices that you have to make that most of the time it's not just about, oh, what is the latest and what is the flashiest. It could be really that the team you're working on, most of their knowledge is around Bootstrap, and everyone understands Bootstrap better than Tailwind and all of that. And if you don't have the need or readily have an advantage of switching over to Tailwind, such a team can continue with Bootstrap. But again, for this class, we'll just stick with Tailwind because it's easy to use, it's easy to start up with, and it's very close to CSS as much as possible for those who really like writing plain vanilla CSS. All right, someone also mentioned that all of the programming concept that we have been talking about, how do they apply to front end component? Yes, so I will demonstrate one of that in I think level 2 should, okay, I think that should be in level 3. All right, I think we've taken enough question. Let's just jump right into level 2. Level 2 is quite involving, but for now, let's delete this index. And by the way, I've also switched over to VS Code. All right, and I think since most of us have VS Code, this switch should be an advantage to you. Okay, so for the next level, what we want to do is we want to initiate a React app. We've started with Tailwind. We'll continue with Tailwind, but we want to use React. And like your last class taught you, the advantages of React over a typical HTML and CSS, you can build more interactive website. Okay, that reminds me of the other question that came up about building a news website with React. Yes, you can, and you can also resort to building a static website for your news website. Just that you have to think about how much pages you need to have. I mean, a typical news site will probably have like 1 million pages over the years, because on a daily basis they are uploading news and news every day. But imagine you build it with a React. What that affords you, I mean, you can also do the same with plain HTML. You can use jQuery to pull the data from an API somewhere. I mean, people still use jQuery. People still use Ajax for pulling data from a remote source. You can do that. But when it comes to the advantages of enjoying reactivity and the ease of manipulating the DOM, and when I'm saying DOM now, of manipulating the UI, as it were, it's a lot easier when you're dealing with React than you would with jQuery. And again, jQuery is sort of old, and what that means is that the support is not as much as you will get with React. And these are some of the things that actually inform picking a new technology. You think about, okay, what if you are stuck and you're trying to look for a solution? Would you easily get help? Would you easily be able to find a documentation somewhere that actually helps you out in whatever situation you might be in? So these are some of the things that we actually think about when picking out new technology. So yes, you can do it with React, and you can as well do it with plain old JavaScript and HTML and CSS. All right, so we continue with Tailwind CSS, and we install React. But for this React app that we are going to be installing, and I know some might make a joke that JavaScript ecosystem has a lot of libraries, a lot of frameworks and all of that. But in the end, it's just to make development easier. For me, I consider Remix to be an easy alternative to create React app, which now has been sunsetted. There's no support for create React app anymore. I think the React ecosystem is moving towards server-side rendering, and they are pushing Next.js and all of that as the go-to when you want to build a React app. But for me, I really consider Remix.js to be really, really simple. It already handles some of the things that you have to deal with when doing React. When it comes to routing, the routing is really clear. I mean, if you're starting out, you can readily see how it handles routing. So all of this we'll see. Okay, so we'll start with this. You might be wondering, okay, where do we start from? Do we create an index, HTML, or what? So this is an NPM project. Remember when you installed Node, we were using NPM to run the code that you wrote, to transpile and all of that. So same thing applies here. This is going to be an NPM project. And the first thing we will do is we can actually initiate NPM. So on my VS Code, I'm going to open my terminal. And most of the work that we do from the terminal, right? Okay. So let's do npm init. And npm init is just going to ask you some of these simple questions. And it's asking for a package name, version, and all of that. I mean, you could start with that, or alternatively, there is a create remix command that you can also run. I think we should probably start with that create remix command. I think that's a lot easier to grab with without having to go through the hoops of doing npm init and all of that, right? Okay. And some of these things, like someone mentioned, you need a lot of research around these things. All of these things, they are documentation online. I mean, if you want to start a React app, you can easily just say that, how do I create a React app with Remix, for instance, and it will give you like step by step how to do it, right? All right, so let's start with create Remix. So we do npx or npm create remix latest. So what this is saying is use the latest version of Remix, right? So it's asking, where do we want to put this? So I would say right here. I mean, in this particular folder that we're working with. Your project directly contains files that will be overwritten by this template. So, we already initiated npm and it created a package.json, and this is what it's saying here. So we'll override it, yes. Initialize a new Git repository, yes. Install dependency with npm, yes. So all of this is going to take a bit of time. So while that is going on, I'll just pause and take some questions. And when all of that installation is done, I'll come back to explain some of the files that have been created. Okay, I think there's a bit of questions now. Okay, I already answered the one about programming concept. Okay. Someone is asking what the benefits and limitation of Tailwind CSS is. So I think as a form of research, and you will meet something like the different approach to writing CSS, or to naming CSS classes. You see the different approach, and I can't remember their names now, but there are different approaches, and some favor the style of Tailwind CSS in that it is expressive. Yes, it might be a little bit verbose in that you just want to put a button on a page, and you have to specify the width of the button, the height, the color each time, right? Imagine that verbosity. For that reason, some people don't like Tailwind. For the same reason, some people also like Tailwind, right? And the fact that it's even React friendly, so a typical React developer would appreciate Tailwind, okay? Someone is happy that we are doing Tailwind finally. All right. Someone is complaining about the definition. Don't worry. I mean, you have a whole lifetime ahead of you to code. You'll code and you'll be satisfied with the coding. But for the benefit of those who are still beginning, we will define as much as we can, okay? All right, so we've already set up Remix now. So, like I said, I was going to explain the different parts of this. Someone was saying that they use Vite. Yes, there's a Vite here. There's a Vite config here. So Vite is a bundler for Remix. So if you're using Vite or using Remix, once you're familiar with Vite, I think Remix shouldn't be too strange to you. And we are all familiar with tsconfig. We've seen this over and over again in some of the other projects that we've worked on. And then we have a Tailwind configuration. In this Tailwind configuration, we have many things that you can configure there. One of those things is setting up the font, right? And for React, you want to specify where the content are, like where should Tailwind look at for where your components are, right? For us, it's inside app, so the create remix command already pre-populated all of that, right? You all know what a readme is. A post CSS allows such thing as auto prefixer and also set up Tailwind. In auto prefixer, okay, I think this will be beyond the scope of this class, but essentially it automatically prefixes different vendor specific code that you typically get on a browser when you're dealing with CSS, so that you don't have to write it all the time for your code. So that's what that does. ESLint is for linting, so that you can see error in real time in your code. But where we are going to really is the app. And remember I said that, let me close all of this so that we can easily see what I'm talking about. I said that routing is quite straightforward with Remix. And other framework, React framework, like Next.js, I saw someone saying which one is Next.js again. All right, Next.js is quite popular when it comes to the React ecosystem. And I want to argue that it might actually be the most popular for now. But again, the JavaScript ecosystem is such that there are a lot of libraries, there are a lot of frameworks serving different purposes. You just choose what you want and know what you want to achieve with it and stick with it. I mean, that's the advice I would give for now. The JavaScript ecosystem is still evolving. I think PHP was also at that point at some point where you could do just about anything with PHP, and that created such a mess that even led to people hating on PHP till this very day. And the same thing is also happening to JS. But it will get to a point where I believe everything will stabilize. But for now, just know that this comes with JavaScript. There are a lot of libraries and all. Okay, so what we have here is we have an index route. Index route is also like the index.html that we had when we were dealing with just plain HTML and CSS. So this contains like your home page. So in this case, remember we were using live server when we were doing index plain HTML and CSS. In this case, what we need to do is to run this app, we'll need npm. So we'll go to our package.json. You will see inside your package.json there are some commands there. But what we are interested in is this dev for the purpose of development. And if you do npm run dev, what it will do is it will bundle the app and give you a link to visit. And clicking on the link, you'll be taken to the React homepage, the Remix default homepage. All right, let me do that here now. All right, so all of these that you see here, let me close some more apps so that the system doesn't freeze up. All right, so all of these that you're seeing here in index.txs is what you are seeing here. For instance, this icon and text, if we comment this out, you see that the text is all gone, remaining the icon. And if we bring back the text, you see that it's back. So for the person asking about the programming concepts and how they apply in front end, we did talk about something about mapping when we're dealing with data structures, or we talked about arrays in data structures, right? And we say you can iterate over an array by using map. And map lists each element in that array. And that is what you see being applied here. So there's such an object called resources, and in that object, in that array, you have an object of resources, which is like it has a link, it has a text, and all of that. So down there, they are now, the resources are now being iterated over, which is what gave this part of the code. So you can actually utilize your data structures that you've learned in your data structure class in what you are doing on the front end. But that and more will come in the other part of the class. All right, so we'll go back again to copying and pasting some of these codes that we further explain. I mean, it's a good question when you asked how data structure applies. So we further see how React works. And one of the things that I think will be beneficial for us to see this evening is how to do components. I know you were taught in your class components and how to pass props and all of that. So you get to see that in action. So we convert one of the index.html that we were dealing with earlier, one of the section in the index.html, we'll convert it to a component. So maybe we start with maybe the hero section. So for now, what we have on this page is this. We want to go from this page to something like that looks like this, right? That's what we want to do. Okay. So what we'll do now is we create a folder for components because we want to convert those sections that we were working with earlier, those expertise section, hero section, and all of that. We want to convert them to components. So we create components, and then let's create hero. Oh, sorry, I created a file instead of a folder. We actually create a folder, not a file, component. And then inside component, we create hero. I think we'll just stick with this hero and then maybe create a project because there's a lot to show in projects, but to make it simple, let's start with hero. So the hero section we are talking about is this portion, and then the project section that we are talking about is like this portion. And thankful to the person that asked the question about using data structure and all, you get to see all of that being done here. And hardly will you be able to do it with just HTML and CSS. And those are the things that comes as benefit from being able to use a library like React. And I mean, there are other alternatives. There's Svelte, there's a Vue, there is a Solid.js, and many other ones like that. But for the sake of this course, we'll just stick with React. And also again, we did mention in that the library really doesn't matter. It's just for you to have an idea of where everything fits into. Okay, so let's jump into the first one, which is our hero component. So for React, it's same to what we have been doing so far when we were creating that basic API project. We add functions and all of that. Same thing React. React is also function based. So we have a functional component you can just think of it as a typical function that you have in TypeScript or JavaScript, right? So when writing a React component, you are essentially just writing a function. So you have something like export function, call it hero, and inside you have a return. So return this portion. Essentially, that is what is happening here. And to help with our import and export, we want to say that hero should be seen as the default function, right? Because from a file, you can actually export several other functions, but when you specify one as the default, it's seen as the I mean, you can consider it to be like a parent function in that sense, but by the name default, it is the default function. You can either do export default here, hero, right? Or to shorten that, since this is the only function here, you can just as well do that here, export default function hero. So now what we'll do is we copy the content that is inside our hero section that we did in the first level and dump in here. And then we have our first component, right? But mind you, there are differences between a typical HTML. You might be wondering, where does class name come from? So that's one of the differences that you get when you're writing a React component. In a typical index.html, what you will have specified when you are adding a class to an element is just class, right? But when it comes to React, or when it comes to JSX, this is what you do. You call it class name. So when you're copying over it from your index.html down here, one of the things that you need to change is this class name. You can just click and select all, then replace all with class name. So essentially, this is our first React component, right? So how do you use this React component? You know, we have an index.html, right? That gave us this page right here. That gave us this page right here. So what we want to do is remove all of this that we have as the default and import hero component. So right now the index is returning all of this. Let me collapse it so that I don't have to scroll all the way down. So we are removing this, and because we removed that, we don't need resources anymore. So we remove that as well. So what we now do is actually have a hero here. Hero. So VS Code is doing autocomplete for me already. Let's see, yeah, it can do auto import as well. So you see it already imported components / hero for me. So if we go back to the page now, you see, yeah, these are a hero page already. I mean, as simple as that. So we have our hero components imported, but like I said, the part I really want us to focus on, if we can, that will span across level 2 and 3, and maybe touch a little bit of level 4, is projects. And then we also do some work around calling some external APIs. So because of time, I will hold off on reading our comments for now. Okay. I will hold off on reading some comments. This video is always available, like we used to say. You can go back to it. I mean, if you listen to everything that has been said so far, you shouldn't be lost, okay? Okay, just to do a quick recap. What we have done so far is we moved from using index.html or plain CSS and HTML in writing our code, and we have gone over to using React. Remember, we initialized our React with remix, right? We did the npm create remix latest, and it gave us all this boilerplate code. And all we just did is remove the content from index.tsx. We created a hero, which is the same thing that we had here originally. We just cut it out of the index.html and put it as a component in React, which is what led us to this hero.txx. So now, moving on to the next part is the project component. So we create a project component, and what's going to contain inside this project is a list of our projects. And there are a couple of things that I'll be doing here, but I would like to explain it beforehand. So for projects, like the other question earlier that asked if we could use React for our news. So that using React for news is similar to what we want to achieve with this project component. So this project is going to be pulling content from a file. In your news app, that content could be coming from an external API, or that content could also be coming from your database, right? Because you have thousands upon thousands of news that you need to serve to your readers, right? So it has to be coming from a storage that can hold all of that data. If it's coming from an endpoint, from an API endpoint, that API endpoint is also pulling the data from a database somewhere. So it's all dependent on the type of architecture that you are adopting for your news website. I mean, taking your mind back to the different system architectures that we have, it could be that you want to have a monolith, or you want to have microservices and all. So all of that decision is around what type of architecture you want to have. But for this one, what we are just going to do is the project details is going to be in a file, and then we have a component project that is pulling those details in, right? Or actually, we call the details in from the index and then pass the project's data as a prop down to the project component. So this touches on one of the other things that you learned in your previous class, which is passing props. Okay, so we create project .tsx, and the same thing that we did earlier, which is export default project is a function, right, that returns something, right? Export default function project, right? Okay. So essentially, going back to the question that was asked earlier about using all the programming concepts. So here, we know that we have a list of projects. So instead of doing what we did earlier in index, using plain HTML and CSS, where we actually wrote one by one the project that we want to display, we can have an array holding all of these details, and then we map through the details like I showed you on the remix default page where resources was being mapped through. So that's the same thing we are going to do here. Okay, so in order for us to do that, we need to import projects from, okay, maybe we'll just start with this so that it's not as confusing for us. So what we'll do is the same way we add resources on the default remix page, we also have project here. So we have projects list is an array of objects. The first one has an ID, and it has a title. Maybe I'll just have two and then show us how to display that. Then it has a title. title 1 or title 1, and it has subtitle. Let's call it subtitle 1, and it has a description. Okay, let's go with just the href. Href is like the link, or we can just call it link, whichever we want to call it. So for now, we are not linking to any pages yet, but we just call it project 1 or slash project 1. So let's copy this same. Let's duplicate this. I hope you guys are already learning shortcuts in VS Code. It will help you with your speed. So instead of me having to type all of those out, I just duplicated it. That's what happened there. So we have a list of projects that we want to display. So now, without really styling anything, we'll just do a project dot map, and each one will be a project. Each of the elements in there will be a project. And yeah, return div containing project ID, the project.title. I think that will, okay. You may be asking what happened, what magic happened. So that's my Prettifier plugin kicking in. So the error here is saying that we need a key. So we pass a key to it. We call it project. And the reason why we need a key is for it to easily identify each element that is being rendered on the DOM or being rendered on the web page. You know, when I said earlier that while we're dealing with HTML, we have to write individually the elements or the projects that we want to display. But in this case, we just loop through the project array. But because on the front end or on the browser, it's actually going to literally write out the project, it needs a way to identify each of the projects or each of the elements in that project array. So that's why it's asking for a key. And thankfully we have an ID specified on the project object. So that's what we're going to be using. Now we have our project component. I mean, we can style it further. I would just do a copy paste that will style it further. But now we need to use our component in our index file. So before now, we just add one component to return, and we didn't need the braces for that. But now that we are returning more than one, we need to put braces. So we are returning project, and we also import that. And React requires that we have an element bounding the two. Let me see if that is okay. That's already imported. So we need to have a div or an empty element to bind the two together. So these are the things that I added just now, because if you have two components, there needs to be a parent to that component, which is what we have done. So if we go back to the browser, we had this hero already before. This is what we just added, our project component. You know, we are only displaying the title, right? And we see that shown there. Now let's beautify it. Let's make it look better. And we'll do that with adding the extra details, adding CSS and all, right? So I'll just copy over what we have in our repository. By the way, I'm still working off level 2. So I'm just going to put that in here. It's still the same thing. Okay, we have to import this guy. Import it from Remix. So import link from @remix run /react. Okay. And we also, yeah, I think that's that. Okay, I made a typo here. From. All right, I think we're good. And we need to return here as well. So we need to return the entire section. Okay, I think we're good now. Then we go back to the browser, and we have a project with title 1 and project with title 2. Okay, so that's like level 2 in our journey to actually showing the cool things we can achieve with React. So just for it to look a little bit more beautiful, let me add some more content other than just title, subtitle, and all. And then when you go back to the browser, you see we have 3 projects now. And we will continue to build on this. So let's switch gear. Again, we will stay a bit on this project because there are a lot of things that we can actually get to achieve with project. So the next thing for us now is actually to pull data from a file. You know, right now we are just dealing with this project array, but it would be nicer for us to actually have like a file that saves it. And the next level to that, it would be to pull data from maybe an API, or having stored data in a database, you can pull your data through an API from that database. But for now, we put it in a file. I mean, if you take your mind back to when we were doing the quotes API, we did something similar as well, where we stored our quotes in a file, and we explained then that we can also have that quote being pulled from a database. So it's similar thing that we are actually doing here. Okay, so I'm going to copy some data that I already have in the project that is on GitHub already. So we'll use that there. So now that we have this data here, we need to import it somehow. One way we could do the import is we'll go to our components. So we have our components in the route, and we import that particular file into here. Or another way you could do that is you go to the index or the root.txs or the index route, which in the case I mentioned earlier was equivalent to the index.html, right? You can also pull it from there. So I think what we should do is pull from there so that we can show how to pass properties. And the other reason for that is, the other reason why we are doing that is so that we can actually go to each project page. You know, now we have a list of projects, but we want to be able to actually click on each project, and then it will take us to a page. Right now, you know, earlier we specified that the href or the link should link to project 3. Right now we have not defined a project 3, but we want to be able to do that. right? So anyway, let's import our JSON file in the index file. So for Remix, the way it works, Remix and Next, they are similar in the sense that they can be server-side rendered. And what that means is that the way React works is that all this that we are writing, it downloads it to the browser and then shows it. And this can create some form of performance hit where you are not able to, or your project has gotten big to the point that it now slows down the browser. So what strategy developers now came up with is to render some of these pages on the server. All you're just sending down to the browser is pure HTML and CSS. And when you do need JavaScript, it will download the needed JavaScript. So how Remix handles this is it specifies a loader function, and in that loader function is where you can perform operations that would typically run on your server, even though you're writing it in the same component file and all of that, but those will run on the server before your page is even shown. So it's not like your page is shown and you are waiting for the data to come. The data is coming in as you are hitting the page link, and by the time you hit the page link, the data is already available and is shown to the browser. So those are one of the benefits of Remix that I found out, and I've stuck with Remix for now. Okay. So we want to do pull from a file. So all of this that I'm writing is actually to type the response and to type the argument that will pass to the loader function. Yeah. If you remember what we talked about in TypeScript, that you can actually pass a type or specify a return type. So that is what we are doing here exactly. So having done that, we need to get our file path equals path dot join process dot cwd. Again, don't mind that we are going too fast. All of this code already exists, and then before the class ends, I'm going to show you the link to pull in the code. So we want to pull the file from app/data/projects. We named it project.json. So now we get the file path, and then the next thing is for us to read. Okay, I just want to be sure what we named it. It's called a project. Path. Path has to be imported. Has to be installed actually. Import path from path. Okay. So we have that now. Next is to get the file. Const file equals await fs the read file. Await fs the read file. Also, we need to import fs. You know what? Maybe I should just go and copy what I already have. Okay, to save on time, so that we can still touch some good parts that I intend for us to. So I'll just copy the file processing part. All right, so we need to import fs. So import fs from fs promises. fs/promises. Yep. So we have that. Then project. Okay, let's define a type project. Interface project. And essentially, this is just taking us back to TypeScript and the benefit that we derive from TypeScript. So I'll copy over the type from that. I think, yeah, it's okay for the benefit of demonstration. So we have projects, the JSON, and JSON, we really don't need you. Okay. We don't need this guy as well because there are no argument being used. All right. So all we just need to do is pass project here. Okay. And then we'll go to our what's it called? Our project component and tell it that it should expect a props called project. Basically that. It still has this squiggly line because there is no such property on project that is called project. Like currently project is not expecting anything. So what we need to do is define an interface for it. Project props. And projects. So I was saying earlier that for the purpose of demonstration, so for now we'll just duplicate the type project, which we already have in the roots folder, and then we use it in here. Projects. All right, let's type it. Project props. Let's call this and this is from React, and this is an arrow function. Okay. All right. So what do we have here? We have export projects. We can do this down there. FC props, project props equals, and then we can now use our projects here. So right now we don't have a project.href, but we have a live URL, and that should be it. We don't have a subtitle too, but we do have a description, and that should be it. What else are we missing? Okay, we can take this one out now. All right. So at least we were able to achieve showing or pulling our project from a file. It says project is not defined. Should be projects. Okay, Jason. Oh, I need to pull this from the server. We'll do that by doing const. I'm sorry about that. Const project equals use loader function, loader data, type of loader, which was defined up there, and that's it. Projects actually. And that should solve the problem. Element type is invalid, expected string, or got undefined. Why is that happening? And JSON is imported from React. Yep. We don't need you. And we need to export this guy. So these are default. All right, so we have a list of projects. So again, like I envisaged, it will take a lot to actually go through all that we have gone through, but we have the code already hosted on GitHub. All right, so what you guys will do is you go to GitHub, and if I can have my slide up so that you guys can see where to see all of the code. You go to GitHub and you pull that code like I demonstrated to you, and you can jump over to the branch level 4, right? And you should see all of that. And you will see where we implemented pulling from API, which I couldn't show here. But if you don't have any question, you can jump into the discussion in the LMS, and I'll be there waiting for you guys. All right, so that's that for tonight. Sorry for shooting over our time by 3 minutes, but we will see next week. And next week, we'll be delving more into all of this. So the part that we were not able to show today, we'll show that next week where we start doing full stack development. So joining the back end to a front end. And I think that will provide us a better opportunity to actually demonstrate the things that we were not able to cover today. All right, good night, guys.